Today we're going to talk about how much money you can make by staking your HEX. Now, HEX staking is the primary use case of HEX in general, okay? It's not just liquid holding, it's staking. It's replacing the CD market or the high interest savings account market, which is a $7.2 trillion industry in the US and China alone. And if you're new here, you got to realize you really need to understand what staking is and how powerful it is and how rich you can get in the future on longer term time horizons. And if you understand the math behind all this stuff, guys, you're going to understand why people are so excited. Now, this might be a review for you. If you've been here a while, you probably get the gist of it. But if you're new here, we're going to do some math. And don't be scared, guys. It's really simple math. We're just going to be doing some multiplication and some addition. So if you can do that, and if you have a calculator, it's really, really easy to do this. And there's also websites that do it for you. So stick around till the end. I'm going to get to all that. But guys, you need to understand what you're holding, and you need to understand the power and the potential of HEX in terms of the APY that it can produce, in terms of the yield that it can generate you to save yourself from yourself, to basically lock yourself up and withstand crazy volatility in bear markets like this. And then you're going to understand how you can set yourself up with a seat at the table on the rocket ship during the bear market for the next bull market. Okay. Now I'm assuming you already have MetaMask. If you don't have that, there's thousands of tutorials online. Get you a MetaMask account, fund it with some money, Ethereum or USDC, and buy some HEX. Now, once you've funded your wallet with HEX, you're going to want to go to go.hex.com. Link in the description below. Very simple. Go.hex.com. The only tab you're going to want to worry about is the stake tab. And this is the primary feature of HEX. This is what everybody's so crazy about, because check the numbers out. There's only two numbers you need to worry about. For the sake of the example, it's just how much you want to stake and how long you want to stake it. Those are the only two things you need to think about when making your decision. Now, let's say we want to stake 10,000 HEX for 1,000 days, roughly 3 years. Now, guys, staking your HEX, I got to warn you, if you don't already know this, it should be obvious. I shouldn't have to repeat this, but staking in HEX actually has consequences. Unlike a lot of these other staking protocols out there, where you can argue that the TVL, the total value locked, isn't really even locked. A lot of other staking protocols, you can unstake whenever you want and there's no consequence. So really, it's just a button click away from being dumped on the open market. Now, when you're staking your HEX, you're interacting with a smart contract. You're entering into an agreement with yourself that you're not going to touch these coins for X number of days. Nobody does it for you. It's totally optional. But if you want the yield, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and you have to forego the opportunity cost of keeping these coins liquid, which in my opinion is a great way to launch coins into the future so you don't have to be concerned with the day-to-day volatility. Oh, bear market, doesn't matter. I'm locked anyway. I'm making interest every single day, and it saves you mentally from yourself. So HEX staking is staking with real-world consequences. It's actual value locked on an actual transparent blockchain. So I've been seeing a lot of new guys getting wrecked out here because they don't understand what they're buying. They're making a max length 5,555 day stake. That's the maximum amount of days. And then they're unstaking it after 1 day. Guys, in HEX, that's called emergency unstaking. You never want to do that. You're going to nuke your whole account. You're going to lose all your HEX, because if you pay a penalty for only accomplishing 0.01% of your stake, you're going to lose all your money. The penalties are based on what percentage of the stake you've completed. So really be careful. I don't recommend ever unstaking early. If you're going to make a contract with yourself, you better be able to hold for the amount of time that you said you would. And if you don't do what you said you were going to do, the math, the code is going to penalize you, because that's what it does. And that's what keeps the price up over the long term. That's why HEX has been so wildly successful, and why it's poised to launch again in the next bull market. So pick your two numbers. We're going to go with staking 10,000 HEX, which today is only about $520. Massive discount if you ask me. We're going to stake for 1,000 days, which is roughly 3 years, maybe about 2.7 years, I think. Now we're going to go over to this little area on the right side. So take a look at this. Okay, look at your stake bonuses. We've got bigger pays better and longer pays better. And if you're like me, which you probably are, bigger pays better is not going to do you much good. This is for serious whales and probably institutional grade money one day. Bigger pays better means that if you stake more HEX in this field, you're going to get a higher bonus. Longer pays better simply means that if you put a higher number in the days section, you're going to get effectively more HEX. You're going to get a bigger bonus. So let's see what happens when I go from 10 days, right? Look, my longer pays better bonus is only 49.4 HEX. 100 days goes 543 HEX. 1,000 days, it's 5,480 HEX. And then if I want to stake for the maximum amount of time, 5,555, my longer pays better bonus is maxed out at 20,000 HEX. So that leads me to the effective HEX, which is 30,000 HEX. So let's go back to the 1,000 days. My effective HEX value is 15,489. Now, what does that mean? This isn't a real amount of HEX. Guys, read the tooltips on the website. They explain everything. But effective HEX just means that it's as if you were staking that much HEX. So the share calculation is done based off how much effective HEX you have. but this is not a real amount of HEX, okay? It's an estimation used for the computer. So the website just uses this number to calculate the amount of shares you get for you. So you don't really have to worry about this too much, okay? This is not a real HEX value, it's effective. And you would know that if you just read the tooltip icon, right? So the only other really important metric, the really important number on this screen is the number of shares you get, or the number of stake T shares that you get for this stake. Now, a T share simply just means a trillion shares. The T stands for a trillion. And there's a lot of shares in the system, guys. Again, the tooltip tells you that. There's a lot of shares in the system because shares actually end up being deflationary, whereas HEX is inflationary. So it's a pretty cool dynamic which gets really complex, but shares are actually scarce. And so in HEX, it's a battle for more and more shares. And the share price per day, you can see today it's 22,000 HEX per T share today. But this number ratchets up little by little every single day, meaning it always gets more and more expensive in HEX terms to buy more shares in the system. Okay, and what's actually happening when you stake HEX is when you stake this HEX, what's really going on behind the scenes in the code level is this HEX is being burned and it goes away. I mean, in the computer's reality, in the computer's world, this HEX gets burned and in exchange, you are buying shares in the system. And remember, shares get harder and harder to get over time. And so during your stake, these shares are what's paying you a certain amount of HEX per day. Every single day, you're racking up money. Every single day, bull market, bear market, doesn't matter. And when your stake is over, you end the stake, and what you're actually doing is you're effectively burning those shares, and in return, you're minting back brand new HEX, which includes your principal, the amount you put in, plus any yield that you get on top of that from the smart contract. So that's what's actually happening. You're exchanging your HEX for shares on the way in, and you're exchanging your shares back for HEX on the way out. So it's pretty cool, and this actually simulates compounding interest in a way that EVM machines can actually compute, which I'm not going to get into that right now. We're just going to go do the math. Okay, let's go do some quick math, really quick numbers. It's going to be so easy, and you're going to realize how rich you could possibly get. So remember, 10,000 HEX stakes for 1,000 days is going to get me 0.682 T shares today. Let's hop over to our handy little spreadsheet here. So remember, we put in 10,000 HEX. Today, that's only 520 bucks, okay? And 0.682 T shares staked for 1,000 days. Well, the number that we need to know now is how many HEX per T share per day are we getting? We can go back to go.hex.com and click on the home page up here, top left corner. And we can scroll down to get that number. Daily HEX payout per T share per day, okay? This chart ratcheted up for a long time during the initial launch phase of HEX. And now you can see it's a volatile number and it's complex to calculate, but it tends to hover around 6.1, 6.2 HEX, and there's some outlier days. Now this number is going to very, very gradually go up over a many multi-year timescale. So in 5, 10, 15 years from now, we might actually see HEX daily payout per T share per day actually moving up on longer yearly timescales. But for the sake of the example, we're just going to use a roughly constant rate of 6.1 HEX per T share per day. But that's the cool thing about this whole calculation is we know it's conservative no matter what. We know we're going to underguess whatever we're actually going to be making in reality, because in the future, this number is going to be higher. We just don't know how high it will be. And that's based off staking activity and adoption and just metrics that are too complex to basically predict. So even with these conservative values, with a steady 6.1, you're still making your total yield, which is very simply T shares times days times HEX per T share per day. So these three numbers multiplied give you 4,160 HEX in yield. That's how much HEX you earned. Now, if we want to speculate about what the price might be in the future, let's say the price in the future is only 45 cents. Let's say in the next bull run, really conservative example, we don't even break all-time highs. And that sounds ridiculous because, as we know, in bull markets, we have these blow-off tops. We almost always make new all-time highs in coins with product market fit, with actual adoption, actual use case, and huge communities behind them like HEX, right? So let's say we come back to about 45 cents. And so that's already like a 9x from where we're at today. And that's super conservative for, we're talking about 3 years from now. Guys, imagine 3 years from now how high HEX can go. I mean, I think it's going to be in the single-digit dollar amounts at least. But if HEX, I mean, I would call this a failure for HEX, right? But even if we only make it back to 45 cents, you know, the USD value of that total HEX yield is $1,872. And then the value of your principal went up from, 520 bucks because that's how much you put in. But 10,000 times 45 cents, that's 4,500 bucks. Okay. So even with very lackluster price performance, you've got your yield 1,800 and your principal 4,500. You just add these two numbers together and you get the total USD value of your stake at the end of the stake. So right now that's 6,372 bucks that you made from yield and principal combined off of a $520 initial investment off of a very simple 1,000 day stake. Conservatively, right, guys? What if also conservatively HEX only does a 4x from all-time highs in the next bull market and puts us at $2? Well, your $500 today in 3 years would be worth $28,320. Okay, and just imagine how high we can possibly go. You know, prices in crypto can always go way higher than you thought humanly possible, and they can always go way lower than you thought humanly possible, like you're seeing today. And so we can just do a rough APY calculation. The total percent that we earned was, let's put the price back at like 50 cents, and the total principal was 5,000, the total yield was 2,000. So you can roughly just divide this number by this number and say, okay, we made about 41% yield total. Now, how much was that in APY terms? Well, roughly dividing, because that was about 2.7 years, roughly dividing that by the 1,000 days by 365 days. Basically, the total APY calculated in yearly terms would be roughly, again, this is a very rough, crude estimation, roughly 15% APY. Now, where else are you going to get that kind of returns in something that's not a total scam, you know, that's promising you hundreds of percent return, but then can't even sustain itself for a whole year, right? I mean, that's what we see with a lot of these crypto protocols, right? They're offering crazy high interest rates, but then they can't even contain themselves. They either get hacked, or they're unsustainable due to bad design, or they rug pull and they're just an outright scam, right? And the developers run away with all the money. But you're earning roughly 15% APY. That's more than enough to beat inflation. And you're using a protocol that has 100% uptime, totally secure, audited 3 times, and is moving to a new blockchain where fees are going to be infinitely cheaper. I don't know, guys. That smells like opportunity to me, right? And if you want to go even more in depth, you can go to stakehex.today. You can connect your wallet to this site if you want to. It just reads. It's totally optional. But you don't even need to connect. You can just create some test stakes if you want to and say, okay, look, let's say I put in $1,000 at today's prices. I'm going to get this much HEX. And let's say I want to do a staking ladder for 10 stakes over 10 years, 3,650 days. Well, you can really see the power of what's going on when you go up here, guys. Look at how it breaks down everything for you. And you can actually play around with this number, you know, the daily HEX per T-share per day. You can see that going up in the future. And let's say we're conservative, right? And we want this to be only 10 HEX by the time we hit 2025. And let's say during the next bull market, maybe we get up to, let's say, $5. Again, super conservative values. And maybe again, in the bull market after that, we get up to a conservative $25. Well, with that $1,000 that you put in, all laddered for you, 1 stake per year for the next 10 years, you're looking at some crazy, crazy USD returns for such a little investment. If you're talking about right now, just check out the top right corner of the site here. I'm not even going to go too far into that because if I do realistic projections seem insane to most people, right? But you got to realize that Bitcoin went from 1 penny to $69,000. Ethereum did a 10,000x return in 2.5 years. You're in the highest appreciating asset class of all time, and you're witnessing the biggest wealth transfer in human history. So you can either be a part of it or not. But just realize that it's almost too risky to not be involved at all. At least that's my perspective on it. And if you want any chance at financial freedom, I think crypto is the place to be. And I think newer, younger cryptocurrencies with product market fit, with huge communities behind them, and so much hype going on, these are the places you want to position yourself to have a seat at the table for the next bull market. Guys, are you going to be a part of it, or are you just going to sit and watch? This is the time to decide that. So anyway, like and subscribe to the channel. Buy some merch in the description below if you want to support this, and I'll see you on the next video.